Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and you want to take your engine bay bling up to the next level? That is going to be the titanium bolt kit from Dress Up Kits, and I want to show you how to install it. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit before we do it and the reasons why you might want to do something like this. Now, this really is kind of that ultimate kit. We're going to be replacing almost every visible bolt in the engine bay with a titanium colored bolt. Now, you can get it in a whole bunch of different colors, and I decided to go blue. Now, I've got a buddy with a gorgeous purple G80 M3, and he had his hood up and he had purple highlighted bolts throughout his engine bay. And I was just like, what is that? It was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And I started to think, you know, blue might be cool because I've got some blue accents through the car. I've got some blue accents in the engine bay, and I'm like, a whole blue bolt kit would be awesome. And I was looking at Dress Up bolts, and they have a full kit of titanium bolts as well. So I'm like, you know what, if we're gonna do this, let's do it right. Let's go bananas and do the whole thing. So I'm gonna walk you through this. This is gonna be a really simple install with only a few tools to go through. And I'm gonna give you the highlights. If we went through every single bolt, this would be like probably an hour-long video, and you don't need that. So I'll show one section, and then you note, like for example, as you look down the quarter panel, there's some bolts to replace. So I'll show you that side, and know that the other side is going to be exactly the same. So let me walk you through this whole process. Let's get started underneath the hood, and I want to show you how you can do this yourself. All right, so we're going to start here on the driver's side of the car on this plastic tray that comes up the side of your fender well. Now, there are those plastic expanding rivets, 1, 2, and 3. Now, in this case, I have all 3 out, but as we go through this, we're going to pull one bolt at a time. We're going to pull one and replace it with one. That way, you don't have anything that goes excessively loose. You don't have any parts that fully come loose as you take everything off, especially as we get into some of the quarter panel bolts a little bit further down the quarter panel. We want to do one at a time. Now, the one thing I wanted to take a little bit of extra time on this is I've not seen a setup like this, and this is really cool. So when you pull the expanding plastic rivet out, it has the plastic pin in the center. You'll pull the plastic pin out, and you're going to replace it with a titanium screw. Now, and these are so light, it's hard to believe. Now, the other caution with all this is, remember, you're working with titanium. It's not magnetic. You drop one of these, they're going to be harder to get than a normal bolt, okay? So do one at a time and be very careful. So you're going to take this as a 55, and anywhere that you've got these expanding rivets, you've got a 55. And you're going to drive this into it. So we'll take, and it's not straight right now, I know. But we're going to put it in, and then we're going to screw this into the plastic rivet. So I've never seen a setup with one of these. This is really cool. So even these, you know, cheap plastic rivets, we're going to replace them with something that looks really, really cool down the body line. All right, so these first 3 are done. As you can see, 1, 2, 3. Now, if you have a problem where the base of the expanding rivet wants to spin, I found this back one wanted to spin on me for a little bit for whatever reason. I just used a straight pick tool and pressed it down to hold down the flange of the lower section. Then I could drive it in with a wrench without any problem. These are 5mm Allens. The vast majority of these bolts are going to be 5mm. So as we work through them. Okay, so now the next ones we're going to do is we're going to stay on the same theme. These are 55s as you pull them out of the bags. Do not cut all the bags open. I'm only going to cut open one bag open at a time that I need them. So I'm going to do this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over on the other side as well. So I'm going to be changing these plastic rivets. Now in this case, I'm actually missing one rivet right here, so I've got a spare, so I'm gonna throw a spare in right there. But go ahead and do down the side. I'm gonna duplicate on the other side while it's fresh in my mind, and I would suggest that you do the same. I'm not gonna show it because it's the same work, right? But I would do kind of matching mirror on both sides as you go through it, so there's no question or confusion as you go through the work. All right, so now you should be out of the 55s. That should have used all the 55s that you have when you're caught up there. And I'm probably going to say this several times, but as we go through this, so for example, this is metal into plastic, and in this case, titanium into plastic. So just snug them down. Don't crank on them super hard. You don't want to crack any place where you're actually putting in plastic, okay? So be super careful with that. So now we're going to move on to the number 3 bolt, which is going to be the number 6 washer, since we've already opened the 6 washers back here for this 55 with the 6 washer right here. So that's done. So the 6 bag of washers should be open. So you're going to do all of these with washers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And these in the back are a little bit hard to reach. I find that a ratcheting 10mm wrench works really, really well. You can lay the wrench in there and slowly work that bolt out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Also here as well, between the reservoir and your carbon fiber strut bar. So you're going to duplicate on both sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 8 total plus 9 right there. So go ahead and get all of those done. I'll show you what it looks like. Just be careful that you don't drop them. As you're taking the original OEM bolts out, you can always keep a magnet and a little magnet on a wand nearby. So if you feel like it's about to slip, you could put the magnet on it so it doesn't drop and drop down into your engine bay, which would suck. When you put them back on, be equally careful as you put them back on. Now, when we go to put these back in, because we're going to be using the 5mm Allen again, I'm going to show you a trick when we get there. But do these first. Do the surface ones. 1, 2, 3. And then these back corner ones, I'll show you the trick for putting them back in first. Do one bolt at a time. Okay, so as you're taking these out, like I said, the number 3 bolts with washers on all of them. You're looking at 10mm OEM bolts here, here, and 1, 2, 3. I know you can't see these 2 right now, but they're tucked back behind, plus the one on the reservoir, plus the ones on the other side. I find that a ratcheting wrench works really, really well. These will give you a good grip to get into that space. You can even fit the wrench in between the quarter panel and those bolts. And very small motions, you know, loosen it up, tighten it back up, so on. Now, what I find is the easiest trick to tighten these bolts in such tight space, right? You can't get a driver in, you can't get a big socket in, but I find I do this. So, and this is a really easy trick. This is a 1/4 inch ratcheting wrench, okay? Right? I've taken a little bit of electrical tape, I've put it around the back side, and then I've wrapped it around the front just enough to help keep it in. And yeah, it makes it a little bit harder to turn, but it keeps the bit into place because this is a 5mm Allen bit. This allows me to not drop it. And if you say, no, I'll just fit it in there and not drop it, you will. I do all the time. So this is a great way of being able to keep that in place. I can take this and fit it back behind, again, in this gap back behind, and then make sure that the bit's in the right direction. I can tighten up those bolts. Again, it's going to be very small motions, but you're able to get it to work out. Okay, so use a ratcheting 10mm to get the originals out. You can use a 1/4 inch wrench, ratcheting wrench, with a 5mm bit that fits in perfectly into that 1/4 inch space to get those out. Okay, take one at a time. These go back on tight. These are metal into metal, and these are for the frame itself, so make sure that they're on strong. All right, and you know, one of the things I'm doing with their printout that comes along with the kit is I'm crossing everything off. It's such a dense picture. I'll give them credit. It's a hard picture to lay out all the numbers of where everything goes. I'm going through and crossing everything off. It's one of the reasons why I'm approaching this so logically, to make sure I don't miss anything or put things in the wrong places. Now, so let's move on to the number 4 bolt with more 6 washers. Now, these were T20s. I don't think I mentioned that a moment ago. And we're going to go to a series of T20s. So you'll see the 4 bolts that hold the brace down plus your hood latch. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got a series across the nose here. One, as we come across, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Here on my car, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So go ahead and do one at a time. Those are going to be number 4 bolts with number 6 washers. So just replace each one with a T20, pull out the OEM, use your 5mm Allen and put the new ones back in, replace all those, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so you should have 3 4 bolts left. So 3 of the number 4. So now you've got this whole line across this front here. One will go right here. One of your 4s will go right here in this bracket to your headlights. So 1, 2, and then 3, the bolt holding down your charge pipe right there. So go ahead and get the rest of those, and then you should be out of the number 4 bolts, and you're pretty close to getting done. We'll just get the rest. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish these 2 across the front. That's a T45 Torx bolt, both of them. And then that is the 234 bolts. There's only 2 of them, and 2 of the 14 washers. So go ahead and pull one of those one at a time, change both of those. Then we're going to get pretty much the rest. There's kind of a mixed group across the rest, but we're getting close to done. All right, so now that we're moving to the little bit bigger bolts, like these 2 that we just did here in the center, those are actually 6mm Allens. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to the number 8 bolts. These are also, there's 6 of them. They're also going to be using the number 14 washer. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, my bolts are a little bit different than in this case. Your default bolts are 13mm here on your carbon strut bar.
These are T45s, if I remember correctly, on both sides. And I've got slightly different bolts because of my Mishimoto oil catch can right there, but I'm sure that it's going to work just fine. So go ahead and take them out one at a time all the way across. And the torque values for your strut bar will be in the video description. All right, so with the last bolt right back here being a 26 with a size 14 washer, it's a very big washer for that bolt, so I try very hard to make sure the washer is centered when I sink the bolt down, but I pretty much do that on everything. I do my best to try to make sure the washers are centered because it looks the best that way. So now we really are down to the differences between the M2 and the F80 and F82. So there are some bolts, there's some 65s that are left over in my car that would go up in this upper section, potentially in your car if you're following this guide on one of the M3 or M4. I don't have them. So I'm pretty much done at this point, and I'm really impressed. This looks really good. I've seen some dress-up kits before. This has added definitely some new elements, especially the ones that go into the plastic expanding rivets. These look really, really good and have not been a problem going in any way. And I am really pleased on how good this looks. This really brings the rest of the engine together, especially in some places like here on this cooling assembly. I mean, on that radiator, I've never seen bolts for that before. So that is really awesome. So what a great setup, all titanium. And I think this is going to look great in your car too.
All right, so go ahead and clean up and put your tools away, and you can tell this is really not a hard project at all. It's just going to take a few simple tools and some time, and you can walk through this whole process. Now, this titanium kit from Dress Up Bolts really is impressive and has some features I've not seen before in some of the other kits. I'm really excited to have it in my car, especially when it matches my blue theme so well. They definitely do have a bunch of other colors, so if you want to match your car color or your theme or whatever you want to do, you can definitely get a kit that's going to individualize down to a level that you want for your car. I really appreciate them making such a fantastic product to work with, and I highly suggest you check it out. Please click like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference to my channel, as I have a ton of content coming I cannot wait to bring to you. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on my next project.